All right, I think we're ready to go. And before we open, Council Member Amos had a very, very important question that we need to ask. Is it ethical for us to start early? It is. Let me turn it over to Ms.
I think it is.
I will turn it over to Ms.
We support that.
Ms. Sangova, I'm going to turn it over to you to introduce.
Are we running the presentation? Or?
Yes.
Okay.
Is the slide deck, is the advancer up there?
Yeah, it's right up there, so I just want to. Yeah, we have it right here. I just want to make sure. Okay.
Y'all are driving the bus, so the floor is yours.
All right, good morning, Chair Wan and members of the Council. My name is Jabu Sangova, and I currently serve as the Ethics Officer for the Ethics Office. Today I have with me Carlos Santiago, our Deputy Ethics Officer to my right, and to my far right I have Sherry Dawson, our Business Manager. All right, so let's go to the next slide, please. So we have here on this slide, it lays out, of course, our vision for the Ethics Office, which is to protect the integrity of the city, and we work hard to instill a culture of ethics in our workplace. For the benefit of our public, our mission is to effectively administer, interpret, and enforce the ethics code. So essentially, we employ a two-pronged approach, which is education and enforcement where appropriate. Our program does fall within Mayor Dickens' fourth pillar of an effective and ethical government, and we have worked very hard for the past 20 years to build an ethics program. Next slide shows our organization structure, and you'll see that it does highlight the diversity of skills and expertise of the staff, ranging from, of course, we have attorneys, we have administrative folks, and we have a range of skills that serve our program. Next slide highlights our FY23, critical highlights, which is also featured in our 2022 annual report. So just running through those quickly, we developed and deployed electronic training for all city employees through the Oracle platform, and trained 7,126 employees, which would represent 94% of the workforce in 2002. And that also included training for our field employees who could not take the electronic course. That brought our total of persons that we trained was 7,301, which also included our officials, board members, vendors, and contractors. We issued 202 ethics advisory emails as well as verbal advice. We published three issues of our signature Ethics in Action newsletter and achieved an 89% filing of 2022 of disclosure statements. We've also completed audits of the 2020 city financial disclosure statements, which is part of our effort to audit statements that are filed for any conflicts of interest, errors, and omissions. And we developed and deployed updates to our e-file system, which is used to file, of course, all the disclosure statements. All right, next slide. All right, so this slide and the next slide will really address the key why we're here today, which is the total operating budget for ethics. As slide 5, you can see that from the two charts, our budget trends from FY21 to FY24 are matching the headcount growth for ethics. And our annual requests are consistent with the growth of the office. The proposed FY24 budget for ethics is $2.1 million. Slide 6 breaks down the actual dollars. So our budget is split funded, and the majority is from general fund, and the rest is supported by watershed and aviation, which is consistent with the citywide impact of the ethics program. Slide 7 captures the difference from FY23 to FY24 and takes a closer look at our personnel. We currently have 9 full-time employees and 1 employee in extra help who will move into a permanent position in FY24, so that would bring our full-time FTE count to 10 employees. We did have 3 vacancies in FY23, but we did fill one of those positions. Unfortunately, we had to put the breaks on 2 of the vacant positions due to weather-related issues that had an impact on our newly acquired space. That said, our new spaces should be ready by the end of June, and we can fill the 2 vacancies, the 2 open positions from they were showing for FY23. Now, the $52,000 increase over the last year in operating expenses is supported by ethics personnel and, of course, our critical functions, financial disclosure, education and training, investigations, and enforcement. Next slide, please. So now we're looking forward to FY24. This slide addresses our plan of operation. For personnel, that plan includes reclassifying 1 position, filling, of course, our vacant positions, and creating new positions to support critical programs. 2 of those positions that we're requesting to be created are actually already accounted for. One is a reclassing an incumbent employee, and the other position is to move one of that extra help employee into a full-time position. Our major contracts agreements remain the same for our integrity line, our e-learning application software, of course, the e-file system for disclosure filings, and our website. And our other operational expenses include, of course, office supplies, technology equipment, and professional services. Moving on to slide 9. Our key priorities for FY24: training, training, and more training. We plan to develop and deploy additional e-learning training, and this year we're focusing on developing specific training for departments. So we're looking at doing more tailored training. For financial disclosure, we continue to make ongoing efforts to enhance and improve our e-file reporting systems just to make sure we are keeping up with technology. We also hope to have a new automated system in place to conduct audits of disclosures forms. We believe that that new system will eliminate the tedious and manual system process that we have, which is really relying on 1 staff member, and speed up the audit process so we'll catch up for our filing years. Again, staffing, I talked about that, which is, of course, to fill the 2 vacant positions and establish and fill 3 new positions, as well as to continue to support professional development of staff. Finally, I'll just conclude on slide 10. I just want to continue to stress enough that an established ethics program such as ours only serves to benefit the city and the citizens of Atlanta. Our office will celebrate 20 years in August, which speaks volumes about the city's commitment to ethics, as well as the staff's commitment and resilience. Ethics training does promote awareness, which helps prevent ethical misconduct. Our disclosure process, we help promotes transparency because the public can view potential business interests, employment, and financial transactions of officials and employees. And we believe that ethics advice is paramount in providing officials, employees, and vendors with clear and consistent guidance so that they can make the best ethical decisions. We appreciate the administration and City Council's budgetary support, and I'm also grateful to all the staff for their continued support and dedication. Thank you, and I will take any questions that you may have.
All right, I'll open it up for questions. I'll go ahead and start. I'm looking at the budget book in page 369, and the numbers aren't matching up, and I don't know if that's a function of apples to oranges with y'all being moved out of OIG. I'm assuming from finance that's the case?
Yeah, the change in the budget book is the transition and separation for the Inspector General's office.
Okay, all right. So I guess I'll have to figure out a way to dive into those numbers a little bit more, but I want to go back to your organizational structure.
Yes.
Which positions are the ones that are currently vacant? I mean, you have two that are vacant and one that's going to go from extra help into a position, right? So which one are the 2 that you're going to be recruiting come June?
So we don't have the vacant positions listed on this org structure.
Okay.
But the 2 positions are an ethics advisor position, which is similar to the one that's one of the ones on the organization chart.
Okay.
And the other vacant position is a management analyst.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, so you're basically just doubling up on those 2 positions.
That is correct.
All All right, the next one is on the FY23 highlights. Really strong numbers in terms of the training and the pledges. I'm surprised that the advisory emails and oral advice number is a little lower than I would have expected. I think I'm 2 of those probably, because that's my natural inclination is the preventative actions. Like I come to y'all when I got a question just to make sure. Is that part of the training as well in terms of, rather than, I think maybe folks look at the ethics office as somewhere to file a complaint as after something's happened or there's an issue versus hey, let me go and check first before I do an action just to make sure that I don't have to worry about the after effect. Do y'all have those conversations? Is that something that might be helpful if we started seeing those numbers go up? An ounce of prevention theory.
Thank you for your question, Chair Wan. And actually, the numbers are higher than it has been in past years. Yeah.
Okay.
We've actually seen it way lower than that. So we've seen an increase. I definitely would say that the training helps because the training opens the door for people to ask questions and reach out to our office. I'd like to think that we've employed a very open door policy. We do ethics messaging. We encourage people to contact our office, you're right, prior to something happening. So we continue to do all those efforts. We'd like to see the numbers higher, absolutely. But we need more staff also for that, so.
Understood. But hey, that again, that'll be kind of my follow-up question down the road in terms of if you had incremental resources, where would you focus on? I just like that strategy in terms of ask the questions first and then get an opinion and then make the decision as to whether to take an action or not. On the same slide, completed audits of 2020 city financial disclosure statements. Is that the typical time lag, or are we behind, or?
So we are behind.
Okay.
Yeah, and that again has to do with staffing, which is one of the reasons why we're so excited about deploying an automated process, which is what some jurisdictions, for example, we've talked to people in Maryland, they're doing. And I'll tell you that will definitely change things 80%. So we should be able to the goal is to audit statements in the current year. That's the goal.
That seemed like a long time, but I didn't know if that was a pandemic challenge or if it was a staffing challenge. I think which just kind of leads me to my final question, and it's the same one that I asked the audit department, is in a city of our size, and I don't know if if with your department is driven by the number of employees, or I would imagine it might not be as driven by the dollar budget. Those are just the first 2 metrics that come to mind. Are we at the right activity level? You've already expressed that there are some things, extra things you wish you could do, and if you had additional resources to do it. So 2 questions. Are we at the right size for your department? And if not, how would you prioritize additional investment? So if we were to give you an extra X number of dollars, how do you triage your spending focus on expansion?
So be careful how I answer this question, but I think that comparing our office size to similar jurisdictions, I think we're trending we're not doing too bad.
Okay.
Now, having said that, I would, be remiss to say that we always need more resources. Yeah. And I think it would be more resources towards some more automation. And in terms of staffing, definitely I'd say for the advisory and educational component. Okay. So if the more staffing we can get to those areas, we can vamp up in terms of being more productive.
Yeah, that makes sense. And would you say it's number of employees that is the best kind of barometric measure, or is it something else?
Do you have any response to that?
I mean, I don't think it's necessarily the amount of employees.
Yeah, I guess in terms of the employees, the number of employees does play into that, because if you look, for example, at New York, which is significantly bigger than us, our staffing is way bigger because you have to be able to provide services to the staff. So employees definitely make it come into play with that, but it also I think it also has to do with the support of that jurisdiction, because we can get all the staffing and resources, but it's important that the administration and council supports the program, and that creates, more people actually want to contact our office. People actually want to utilize our resources, because you can have 20 people in the office and nobody uses the office.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I guess being cynical, the notion would be the more number of employees you have, the more folks you have to coach and watch and all that. But then the more dollars that you have, the more opportunity there is for misinterpretation of the ethics guidelines, right? And so I just didn't know which path actually made a little more sense.
We're never going to say no to more dollars.
Oh, I know that.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
But we just want to make sure that we're allocating the resources where they should be, so that's important as well. So you want steady growth as opposed to just, I get a bunch of people and then I have to make sure I'm actually accounting for that.
Yeah, I appreciate you're talking about investing in technology and automated systems, because you're right, that can be kind of a first triage strategy in terms of, hey, there's some self things that can happen within the system in terms of
Right.
identifying issues or all that. But,
Yeah,
okay.
because the e-learning has been very successful, for example,
Yeah.
and that's all part of the automated systems.
Okay. Other questions? Sorry, I kind of monopolized all that, but Mr. Shook? People are scared to ask you questions.
Well, I recently had reason to bounce a question off you and received a prompt and very useful answer, so I appreciate that. My curiosity is piqued here by your performance metrics, and I note that FY22, you collected a little over 90K in fines. Are there fines that you have assessed prior but have yet to collect?
So that has been one of our bigger challenges, collecting fines, because the code doesn't specifically, we can recommend fines to be collected, but we don't have the authority. We're not technically speaking a collection agency. But we have been given, I think we're getting more power enforcement authority to collect fines. In past years, it's been a struggle. So if you see a jump in a fine, it's only because maybe we've been employing different methods to collect on sanctions. And definitely if it's a former employee, for example, it's extremely difficult to collect a fine from a former employee.
Yeah, well, I remember at least one occasion when you were flatly told, no, the answer is no, I'm not paying you. Is there an organization that processes as much paperwork annually?
In terms of the fines, sanctions?
No. Just in terms of forms and the reports and, I mean,
Filings and all?
yeah, all the filings. I mean, you must go through an avalanche of paper every year.
Well, no, because it's all electronically filed now. So we're not, I mean, we only have a small percentage of forms that are accepted, paper forms, but no, everything is electronic. So even with our audits, it's being done electronically.
Okay. I remember a couple of years ago, and I'm not begging you for more training. I think we're a little bit overloaded probably with training, not just from you, but society. But I do remember something that was very profitable, and that was an exercise where you posed a bunch of hypothetical questions. And to my surprise, and everyone's surprise, the answers we expected were not always the correct ones, which is why those questions were formulated as they were. It's been a while since you've done that, and well, I'll be honest, if you could just email us a questionnaire, that'd be better than sitting in here for an hour and a half. But I thought that was useful. I mean, do you have any interest in doing that again? I mean, there was a lot of give and take and surprise and back and forth.
We've been doing, and are you talking about classroom training? We've done training.
The hypotheticals that we had, that I can remember us going through here in this room as part of it.
Yeah,
training?
so that would be the specific training, council member, that we do. For example, I've done training, you might be referring to training I did for council and council staff. That might be the training you're referring to.
Okay, you're right.
Or just, for example, this year, Mr. Santiago did some training for our procurement department. So those are where you have the hypotheticals. So that's not just the e-learning, that's the face-to-face, we're coming and we're doing. And we've done that before, but again, it's just a matter of, usually it's on request of the department, but we do reach out to certain departments and try to set up training like that with the hypotheticals.
And ethicists don't always see everything the same way either, do they? I mean, as is the case with any group of professionals.
Yes.
So you're relying, I guess, on a sort of a institutional interpretation for a lot of your kind of baseline situations that come up, correct?
Correct. And we also try to employ some practical interpretation. How is this really going to relate to the work you do? It's not just a matter of just looking at the code, but we do make practical considerations and look at just looking at the business, looking at what that department is focused on. So it can be practical. It's really, our advice is we try to make it practical as possible.
Well, congratulations on 20 years.
Yeah.
Ms. Norwood and I were here at the founding, and you can't totally take the politics out of politics. I remember some interesting subplots attending the birth of the organization, but I'm glad we did it.
We can't take all the credit. We got to give credit to the previous ethics officers as well.
Yes,
We
indeed.
made it.
Thank you.
Any other questions from my colleagues? I will close by saying, as I mentioned earlier, y'all have been immensely helpful to me as well in terms of the questions that I've brought to y'all. Because I think it's important for us to share that it's not, y'all aren't, everybody thinks of y'all as just the gotcha group. Like, we're going to find something and we're going to make an issue out of it versus a kind of a resource and a consultation group that, hey, raise the questions, let's have a conversation about it. Because like Councilmember Shook pointed out, I mean, there are a lot of just situational factors and considerations that aren't always just yes or no. That's yes and or no but kind of conversations that can be open. And I think that ultimately is probably one of the most effective and helpful activities y'all can do. So I'd love to see if we can figure out a way, additional ways to get that message out. And let's see if next year this time we see more of those consultation numbers, because at the end of the day, I feel like that also is a driver of ethics and integrity at a city operation as well.
Totally agree and support that.
I do have one final question that I remembered. The transition, and this may be a finance question as well, the transition to you getting separated out and becoming your own department.
Yes.
All the technical pieces, Oracle or finance and payroll, and all, is that all moving along okay? Okay.
Yep, that's all moving along okay, and why we were able to set up the appropriate categories for the budget, so they're all aligned in the system now.
Ready to go July 1?
Yep.
All right, other questions? All right, thank you again for all the work that y'all do.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Appreciate it.
It's the Inspector General, I don't see them in the room. I should put my glasses on. Okay, I guess we'll pause now until they get here, and then we'll be ready to go as soon as they are on the stage.